Wednesday, May 6, 2020, MONERO 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today I'm going to try to show you why central banks are parasitical institutions, why they're a threat to freedom and prosperity. I will recommend you a few books about central banking. I don't agree with all of them on some solutions. I'll also recommend you a book on money so you can understand a little better what money is. Some of you, of course, have seen this book before. I also want to show you a video that you might think it's strange to look at, but I think it will give you an idea about value and what the central banks do, and why it's such a unfair system for the world and for individuals in general, of course, well, for every individual on earth. So let's start with some quotes from people who were involved in central banking. The one that comes to mind that's really amazing, and it proves the saying that the best place to hide, of course, is in plain sight. And that's from the founder of the Bank of England in 1694. Bank of England was founded, William Patterson. And this is what he said: "The bank hath benefit of interest on all monies which it creates out of nothing." So that there to me just goes to show that central banking and their fiat currency system are a parasitical system. And I'll come to that in a minute. There's another quote here as well in this book that I'll come to in a minute, but I'll take the quote. It's from Reginald McKenna, former Chancellor of the Exchequer or Finance Minister in the UK, or equivalent of the US Secretary of the Treasury. This is what he said, and I quote, "I am afraid that the ordinary citizen will not like to be told that the banks can and do create and destroy money. The amount of money in existence varies only with the actions of the banks increasing and decreasing deposits and bank purchases, and they who control the credit of a nation direct the policy of governments and hold in the hollow of their hands the destiny of the people." So that was Reginald McKenna. So those two quotes there should help you understand what's going on, hopefully. So the video I want you to watch, and you might laugh, it's Pallet Wood Furniture, a magical wardrobe made out of nothing but recycled timber. And I'm going to put the link below in the description and the video up in the cards. It's almost 20 minutes. You might not want to watch the whole thing, but I think you should, so you can understand what real value is. It's by a YouTube channel called Epic Upcycling. It got put through onto my YouTube page the other day, and I watched it. And it came to my mind that this is real value. This, of course, is created at very low cost, but it's supposed to be worth £10. Still, you can still buy stuff with some value. But after watching that video, I thought, if I was that guy, I would rather get paid in something of value like this or this than a piece of paper for all that effort that he made, all the ingenuity that he has, all the skills, then to accept something from people that don't do anything. They just sit in a huge building and pretend that they're powerful just because they sit in like almost a fort, right? Because that's what the Bank of England looks like if you go into the city of London. It's very imposing, but they don't have any power. The only reason they have power is that we consent to taking these let's look at the books that I think people should read. The first one, What Has Government Done to Our Money by Murray Rothbard. This will help you understand the nature of money and what it really is and how they've hijacked it, not only government, but the central banks. And of course, it's not just the central banks that create money out of nothing. It's their agent banks, the banks that control the central banks, because the regional banks at the Fed, they own the regional Federal Reserve branches, of course. So these commercial banks also create money out of nothing. It's all part of the system. Am I saying we shouldn't have banks? No. What I'm saying is we shouldn't have central banks. We should have a free market in banking. Okay, the other ones are more about central banking. I think the classic one is The Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. This is the original one here. Eustace Mullins has passed away a few years ago. He was pushed into studying the Federal Reserve by Ezra Pound back in the early 50s. So this one is tough to get. You might need to look hard and dig deep into your wallet maybe, because this could be fairly expensive to get. You might find a free PDF, but I doubt it. The other one is End the Fed by Ron Paul. It's a classic. I interviewed Ron Paul, of course, a few weeks ago, and yeah, he confirmed that central banking, the institution of central banking, is a threat to our freedoms. The one that most people who have been looking into this question of central banking know about is The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a classic as well, a good one by G. Edward Griffin. There you go. And there's another one that for me is a little bit of a mixed bag, because he gets the point that central banking enslaves mankind, but his solutions, in my opinion, are flawed, because he calls for state banking. And in my opinion, that's just as bad. It's centralized banking and money. But be as it may, his description of what central banking is good, in my opinion. And this one is A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind by Stephen Mitford Goodson. That's the one. Yeah. So I don't like his solution. I don't think he's right about what we should have, personally. I think in the United States, the Constitution is set up for Americans to have a system where there is no central banks, where the general public themselves, through the marketplace, control the money and the money supply. In my opinion, instead of central banking, well, we should have a free market system. We shouldn't have the government or the state be involved in money. Just like anything else in the free market economy, it should be left to the market. People need to decide what currencies, what money they want to use, be it gold, be it silver, be it seashells, be it Bitcoin, be it salt, whatever they want. Let the people decide. Let the free market decide. We've seen that centralization doesn't work. Socialism has failed. Communism has failed. Fascism has failed. So, yeah, no centralization and free market competition. Free market competition always benefits the general public, because you get better products at a lower rate versus the money that you use. That means lower prices, of course. And just before I look into the markets this morning, just want to go through the Communist Manifesto. Why would I want to do that? Well, here you have the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. So their first plank is abolition of private property in land and application of all rents of land to public purpose. This is getting very close to that, I would say, with this crisis. A heavy, progressive, or graduated income tax, that's number 2. I've been hearing people in the mainstream economic world, political world, especially in the UK, saying that we're going to have to swallow it and accept more taxes now after this crisis because governments are having to spend so much money. So that's getting back into we're starting to see that come back. Abolition of all rights of inheritance, number 3. Well, here in the UK, that's part of the system. If you're not wealthy enough to protect your wealth through trusts, you get 40% of your wealth confiscated by the state. Once you pass on, your inheritors have to pay the bill. Of course, there is a threshold for confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. So you can have a look at that, read through it. I'll put a link to this in the description. I think it does apply in the US. And this is the one that really is important for you to keep in mind, especially with the question of central banking or state banking or any kind of centralized credit or monetary system. Number 5, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and an exclusive monopoly. You see, that's the word there, monopoly. OPEC is a monopoly. Central banking is a monopoly. They're cartels, right? What does it say? The Federal Reserve System created by the Federal Reserve Act of Congress in 1913 is indeed such a national bank, and it politically manipulates interest rates and holds a monopoly on legal counterfeiting in the United States. It is counterfeiting because they create this fiat currency, which is backed by your efforts. Why do I say that? Well, it's the credit of the United States is on your back. You're the one who pays tax or has to use the currency that loses value, and inflation or loss of value of the currency is a tax. This is exactly what Marx had in mind and completely fulfills this plank. Another major socialist objective. Yet most Americans naively believe the US of A is far from a Marxist or socialist nation. Let's keep going just to see here, because this is getting interesting now with this crisis. We're getting closer to Marx's dream, right? 6, centralization of the means of communication and transportation in the hands of the state. Well, you look at the major internet companies nowadays, how they're censoring everyone, right? How they have close ties to the deep state. 7, extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state. The bringing into cultivation of wastelands and the improvement of the soil generally in accordance with a common plan. Well, I think President Trump triggered some law that was passed during the Korean War to take over production or to take over any part of the economy. There's number 7. Equal obligation of all to work, establishment of industrial armies, especially for agriculture. Number 9, combination of agricultural and manufacturing industries. Gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by a more equable distribution of the population over the country. Number 10, free education for all children in government schools. Abolition of children's factory labor in its present form. Combination of education with industrial production. So free education, of course, is the public schools in the US or the state schools here in the UK. Why is that so important for the communists? Well, because they can instill the ideals of collectivism on young people. And when you do that, it's very hard to get them off that mindset. And that's why we have a lot of people, young people who are left-wing. A lot of them, though, I have to say, when they start working and they realize what's going on, they move away from that. So there's still hope. So there you go. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about China, for example, that they're going to have a digital blockchain-based yuan, and that it's going to be backed by gold. Would that be a good thing? No, because they still have their central bank. So I wouldn't fall for all these things. Of course, it would help those who hold gold, because that would definitely put a rocket ship up the gold price. But it wouldn't mean it would be good for humanity. Yeah, don't fall into the trap of thinking that the Chinese are any different. So what we need really is freedom from central banking. And how do we get away from it? Well, through education, through people learning about the system, how parasitical it is, how a group of very few men and women can create value out of nothing, and then with that currency purchase things that you produce with a lot of effort. That's parasitical. Let's finish off with the markets. It's 8:40 a.m. London. So yesterday the stock market did well, but I would say didn't close very well. We closed back below 24,000 in the Dow. This morning, the Dow futures right at 24,000. It's up 118 or 0.5%. S&P and NASDAQ futures are up 0.5% or thereabouts as well. Gold still stuck around 1,700. Right now it's 1,705, unchanged. Range has been 1,700 to 1,708, so pretty narrow range. Silver is doing a little better this morning. It's up over 1% at 15.11. The currencies, sterling's at 124.37. Euro is down 7 pips, which is nothing really, at 108.30. Dollars down 0.25% against the yen at 106.29. And oil is down this morning a little bit, 0.2% at 25.44. That's the WTI crude. Let's finish off with the bond market. The 10-year yield is up about 2 basis points at 0.67, the US 10-year yield. The Italian 10-year yield actually rose a little bit yesterday. We got almost back up to 2%. There was an announcement by a German court, I think is the Constitutional Court, saying that the Bundesbank would not be allowed to be involved in QE unless the ECB could justify the QE that they're doing. So that might put a spanner in the works of the ECB. We need to keep that in the back of our minds for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and all these other platforms below here. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.